Okay, guten Morgen und herzlich willkommen zu unserem Event. Ich fange jetzt schon mal auf Deutsch an, aber eine Frage, die Selma hat es vorhin, eigentlich bei der Planung hat sie Englisch als Sprache für dieses Event festgelegt. Ich weiß jetzt nicht, ob jemand damit ein Problem hätte. Also, Englisch ist okay? Okay, du hättest ein Problem mit Deutsch. Okay, then I will switch to English also. So it's my pleasure to announce this event, to kick off this event. I won't be talking too long because it's the event where our partners, our clients, our friends talk, and we are just organizing this event and trying to make it as interesting as possible for you. My name is Tom, for the ones who don't know me, but I guess most people here are familiar, or at least I know them. And I'm one of the directors of comSysto. But today I'm talking on behalf of the Big Data Community Alliance, not on behalf of comSysto. comSysto is part of this alliance, and what this alliance is all about is, we have, as all of you probably also discovered, the trend that's transforming some things in today's world and in the way we look at and work with data. And we are reluctant in using this very much used term, big data, but it's in the name of this alliance, so we're going to have to stick to it. But what it's all about is really some new ways and new changes in the way we look at working with data on several levels: on the technology level, on the methodology level, on the use case level, but also on the business model level. And what this alliance has already achieved, we have organized many technical events, many user group events, meetup events on the technical level. Yeah? So it's all about the how things are done. Today's event is something different. It's more about the what and the why. Yeah? So why we're doing this. I guess we're gonna have some things, some aspects in some talks about the how, but it's not the primary goal of this event. And we have some very interesting speakers today, some very interesting talks, and I think we have covered a very broad range of use cases and companies. So we have established large companies whose business models are not really data-driven, but they are supported by data more and more. Then we have some really native data-driven business models represented here. And we have some very successful startups. And we have some academia here. We have two universities, or representatives from two universities, to cover also the theoretical side of the whole thing. So I think it's gonna be. I hope everyone is gonna find something interesting here. And so I guess we can start now.
Yeah, we can start, and the next speaker is Ms. Attenberger from the Ludwig Maximilian University. Please welcome Ms. Attenberger.
Okay, so first let me thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here today and to have the opportunity to present our research project ABIDA. I'm currently working as a PhD candidate at the LMU here in Munich, and I'm involved in this project. So maybe some of you might be wondering what this project has to do with the topic of the event. But I hope after my talk you will see that the interdisciplinary perspective we are working on is very important for everyone who's working in the context of big data. So our project is funded by the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research. They already had 2 competence centers. One is the Berlin Big Data Center, and the other one is the Competence Center for Scalable Data Services and Solutions. But they are both focusing on the technological aspects. Our project instead is focusing on the economic and social consequences of big data. So here you see what my talk will be about. I will start about big data's impact on society. Then I will present you some general aspects of our project. And finally, I will shortly talk about the economic research group, which is a small part of the project. So I think everyone agrees when we say that the big data hype, smart data hype, whatever we call it, is still going on. But every time we talk about big data, we have to keep in mind that several disciplines are involved. So may it be technology, sociology, economy, whatever. And we have to think about that these different aspects are part of our society. So if we talk about big data and the importance of big data, we always have to keep in mind that we have to focus more and more on the issues of the society. So here are some publications about the topic of the social dimensions of big data. So we see that these issues are becoming more and more relevant. We have the first book that is talking about big data as a revolution, how we work, think, big data and privacy, and big data and how our data are collected, how companies treat our data. So the social dimensions of big data, I think if most people think about it, these are transparency, security, and ownership. So these 3 are very crucial and central. But if we talk about the social dimensions, there are a lot of other aspects we have to look at. So we have to keep in mind the privacy of the individuals, the growth and the wealth of our economy, the people's acceptance of big data, the identity, and also the right of the informational self-determination. So are we still allowed to decide who is the owner of our data and how people proceed with our data? So the trigger of our project was that we cannot talk about big data without facing all the questions of high social relevance behind it. So a consortium was established of 6 different partners. You see them here. They have all different core activities in our project, but we have 4 common goals. So besides the evaluation of current developments of big data, one central aspect is to identify the public's opinion on big data, what they think the risks of big data are they afraid of big data, what chances do they see. Therefore, we have a regular exchange of knowledge between specialist disciplines. We have 5 disciplines. We have law, we have economics, sociology, ethics, and political sciences. And within these 5 groups, we try to identify the future developments of big data and some options for action. So unfortunately, as we just started in March this year, I'm not able to present you any key findings of our work within the research groups, but as our project lasts for 4 years, we will soon publish the first reports on it, and they will be all open source. But what I can talk about is the methodology we are working in this project. So we have, for all 4 years, we have a monitoring. We develop scenarios to be always up to date with big data. And we split the 4 years into 2 stages. So now we are in stage 1. This means we have established our disciplinary research groups, and we will have in February the first conference on our key findings so far. We develop a Delphi study where we involve experts which have domain knowledge to get knowledge from outside, not just the academia version. We will have a citizens conference and a public opinion poll to involve the view of our society. One goal in stage 1 is to identify which research gaps we have when we talk about big data in society. And in stage 2, we will have some in-depth studies where we will work on these research gaps. Therefore, we will establish some expert workshops where we gain the domain knowledge. We will have focus group, and after all this, we will publish everything in our project report.
Regarding the scenarios, what kind of scenarios do you have in mind?
So actually it's not, I'm involved in the economic research groups and the coordination in Münster, and Karlsruhe is responsible for the scenarios. But as far as I know, the scenarios are developed for the Delphi studies. So they will work on different scenarios from all disciplines. This means from law, sociology, and so on. And then the experts in the Delphi study, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Delphi study, how it works. So as an expert you get lots of different possible scenarios, and then you decide about the probabilities, about the risks of these scenarios. And like this they try to identify the path of big data in the future. So these are the research groups I was already talking about. As I've just mentioned, we have 2 coordinators. This is Münster University and the KIT. The KIT is also responsible for the ethics part, so they are dealing with ethical key problems and questions concerning the analytics of big data from an ethic point of view. Then we have some lawyers of the Leibniz University who will talk about, we all know them, data protection. Everyone is talking how our data can be protected. What about the privacy and the ownership? Because in Germany we don't have any laws that say, okay, this is my data, this is your data. Everyone is talking about big data, but the big problem is we don't know who's the owner of the data.
Hopefully the user.
Yeah, I hope so too, but they are not sure. The problem is that the changes in law are taking too long. So whatever they will decide, we will have such a big progress in working with our data that the laws they develop will not satisfy the current state of our development. So they are always behind what we are doing with the data, and that's the problem, because in the US, for example, the big issue is not data protection or data ownership. They are worrying more about the skills, because they say we don't have the people with the right skills to work with big data. That is what they are worrying about. In Germany, when you talk about big data, the problem always is, oh my God, what about data protection? Nobody cares about, do we have the people, do we have data scientists who are able to work with these data we have? Because if we don't have people that are able to work with the data we can provide, we will not have the results we want. And that's the main difference between the US and the German point of view on the big data problems.
So that means the outcome of the Delphi study will be impacted to a very high degree on the participants. So what are the experts? Just German ones or European?
No, they are trying to establish an international view as well. I'm not really sure from the financial side if it's possible to get a balance between the German and the international view from Asia, for example, because it's also quite a different culture. And we think when we talk about big data, we always have to include the culture, because it's always, every culture is treating data in another way.
Is there anybody involved from a legal perspective? Because I think one of the big differences between the US and Europe is the legal perspective.
Yeah.
The US is on the case law side, so
Yeah.
everything is decided on
Yeah,
the real
sure,
case.
you're absolutely right. So each university you see here has established its own research group. So the lawyers also have a research group of 6 to 8 persons, and there is also involved a specialist from the US, because we want to deal with the problems which are in the US and the German ones, because actually if we talk about big data, they always say just look in the US, what they are doing, how they proceed with data, how they are working with them, because we have to, we can't, we have to focus on to be like the US, because we will not be competitive anymore if we don't work with our data how our competitors do. We also have a technical university involved. They are dealing with the social risk, privacy changes, and the digital divide, which means for our economy, what problems will evolve. There will be a gap between people who have the access to data and the people who don't have access to data, so there will be a digital divide. Then we have the economic research group where I'm involved. We talk about big data and the impact on enterprises, on sectors, but we also have an overall perspective. I will talk about this later. And we have some who are talking about big data as a regulation object and a regulation resource. So now we'll talk about the economic research group where I'm involved. You can see here, these are our partners. So for us it was very important to get most out of the project, was to get a balance between research and practice. That was very important, because we can't talk about big data just from the academia side. We always have to involve practice. We have 4 very important partners and different partners from practice. We are working with Siemens because they have a worldwide experience how to work on big data issues. We have Trumpf, where we get engineering side, where we can get some insights about the transformation of the sector. We have comSysto, which have a lot of experience concerning big data use cases, and we get a perspective from marketing and the client side through TNS Infratest. So we already had our first 2 workshops where we identified on which topics we are going to work. The first one was to come up with a big data definition from an economic point of view, because I think everyone knows big data, the 3 V's, but this is not enough, especially not from an economic point of view. Then we will talk about the big data value chain and business models. This means we will look at how the big data value chain develops, what changes we had in the last years, which phases or stages are more relevant than others. And we will look at new business models. This means we will look at business model, big data as a service, and also big data in services. We will make this separation. So we will look at the development of the traditional value chain, and one important aspect is also to look at the small and medium enterprises, because especially in Germany, I think our engineering, which is most part of the small and medium enterprises, this is our German know-how, where we are good at it, and we want to look at how this sector is transforming, or which problems we have concerning the transformation. Then we will look at the enterprise. This means we will look at company strategy and database decision making, how this changes the companies and what requirements we do have to be able to establish a data-driven strategy. And we will also look at real-time economy and what this means for the companies. Then we will have competition and regulation. We have one expert from university who is dealing very much with these issues, so we are happy that we can involve this point of view as well, so we can also get an international view on big data and the differences between Germany, Asia and the US. Then we will have an overall perspective where we deal with forecasting and its impact. We want to focus especially on how problematic it can be if the forecasting does not work or if it's not correct. So what are the implications if the forecasting through big data is not right? And we will also talk about the topic data ownership. Even if we have some legal perspective in our project, we cannot separate completely the economic point of view and the legal point of view concerning data ownership, because it's very important for the economy to know who is the owner of the data. And last but not least, we're also dealing with the impact on society. There you see different topics we are going to work with. It's security, transparency and identity. The one I want to highlight is wealth and growth, because we think that big data can be a chance for wealth and growth. In our last workshop this week, we already talked about this also with Mr. Zorg. We had this discussion what will be with wealth and growth if, for example, our engineering part of the economy will be taken over by cheaper products from Asia when they get the know-how, what problems we have to face if our engineering we are good with will be completely out of the market. So let me close with the next steps we are working on. As I've already mentioned, we will have a conference on our key findings about big data and society so far in February next year. Now we're working in our research group to identify two relevant cases for big data. We have to work on two relevant research gaps where we don't have enough information, and as soon as we discover them, we will have some in-depth studies in the last 2 years about these issues, and we will have an expert workshop to gain additional domain knowledge from outside. So if someone of you might be interested in contributing also to expert workshops to share the domain knowledge, you're always invited to contact us, or you can also find more information on the homepage abida.eu if you are interested in this. So thank you very much, and now I hope you have some more questions. I hope this was not too much from academia side, and you get some interesting insights in how this project combined with academia and research work. I'm not sure how familiar you are with such projects.
At the beginning you mentioned that you have a sponsorship by the government. Mm-hmm. What's your impression how the importance and the urgency is seen from a government side for this topic?
We had two kick-off sessions also with some people from the government, and what was very interesting, they have tons of projects concerning big data at the moment, but this one is the first project where we have an interdisciplinary view. So the projects before, they were just on the economic aspects or just on the technological aspects. And I think that what the practice side knows since a long time, that it will change our society. The big data hype will change our rules in the society. They are starting to get to know that this process is happening. So they are a little bit behind the practical side, that there are huge changes in our society and how we work with big data. So I think what is very good with concerning our project, other projects have a various they have an agenda, they have an overview, they have results they have to develop during the project. In our project, that it just said, okay, we want to develop an interdisciplinary view, and what you are doing in this project is just yours. We will not be involved in this project. So normally, if you have a project which is funded by the government, you always, when you have meetings, you have always people from the government who show their side on the issue, and that's not the fact at all. So sometimes they attend our meetings, but they just sit there and hear what we are talking about, and they are not giving us the direction on which we have to work, because they know that concerning the interdisciplinary perspective, they have been on the wrong way. And now this is the first project where they want to know which way big data is going from an interdisciplinary point of view.
Do you have any ideas or any background on what is going on in the industry itself? Because I think exactly what you're doing, and putting this into the context of the society, is the reason why big data is becoming that important for everyone. So I would imagine that the industry, the politics will try as well to have their own studies to drive this in their way they would like to have this. Is there anything that you are aware of already, that there are foundations, associations, whatever, that are coming up, that are either being in contrast to what you're doing or even complementing to your work?
Actually, at this time there are several groups working on the different disciplines, and it's very interesting. We have a telephone conference every 2 months for our project, and it's very interesting to see what the economic research group is talking about, what the ethic group is talking about. So if we can come up with business models and the ethics side says, oh my God, you can't do this from the ethic perspective. So I think, but this shows us how important it is to look from an interdisciplinary view on big data, because we cannot talk about, this is very important for us as the economic research group, we cannot talk about new business models, for example, as long as we don't know how the legal side will develop. So sure, we can talk about lots of models, but they are just hypotheses if the legal or the laws will develop in another direction. So, but the big problem is that the legal side does not know at all what the development will be like. So this is, I think, in our project, this is the biggest problem, that we don't know how the laws will develop. We don't know this is all. So this is all nice to have. This will be all nice. Our work of 4 years will be perfect. But if the laws develop in another direction, we could have spent our time on working on other things. So this is the big problem.
Is there any interest from the government side in understanding what you're coming up in terms of results to influence the laws?
Yeah, they are. So as you've seen, the legal working group is going to present their findings every half year, I think, and presenting the results to the government. And they are really interested in what we develop. But you know that the problem will be, maybe it's interesting for them what will be developed, but the people that are interested in our results will not be the one who decide how the laws will develop. And I think that's a big problem. Maybe it's the first step to change some laws, but the problem is that it will take lots of time till we will have any changes.
And kind of a follow-up to the previous question, I'm not sure if I missed it, but I didn't really see a lot of big data technology itself in your project. I don't know if I missed this one.
No, you're fine. That's right, we're not dealing with technology a lot. So we work together with the other two competence centers I mentioned at the beginning. So we have, for example, the Competence Center of Scalable Data Services and Solutions. And one point in our research group, for example, is to look at the big data value chain, where lots of infrastructure is involved as well. And we will have some exchange with them and their results, what their point of view is on this aspect.
Okay, because I mean, I'm more a technology guy,
Yeah,
and to be honest, this is the first big data presentation without any technology that I have ever seen.
Yeah.
But one of my worries, for example, is that it's extremely difficult to create a system that is both good at remembering and forgetting. And in particular, if a law comes out that says you absolutely need to be able to erase user data from your backups, from whatever, this may make it extremely costly for enterprises to adopt big data. So I would also like to see more that this project not only monitors the laws and waits for them to happen, but also like injects, okay, if you come up with this law, you have this impact, it will get Germany out of big data business.
I think that our project is the step to get from disciplinary view on an interdisciplinary view, but I think the next step should be to integrate the interdisciplinary view we have here with the technological side. So actually you should bring every part I mentioned at the beginning, the different disciplines where technology is a big one, at one table and to talk about these issues. And I think this is one part we're still missing in this project here, because we have no technological side.
So this is a large group, and I was wondering, how do you keep up with the pace of lots of things are changing, especially because this is a technology topic, and but maybe not keeping up with the pace, but how do you keep it lean with all the members? And is there any methodology or something you can share?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. As you've already mentioned, our project lasts for 4 years, and I think the findings we will have in the first 3 months will be completely different from the findings maybe in 4 years, because there will be a certain development. But I think as we are not looking at the technological side and all the points I mentioned also for the economic research group, every point we're working on, we always keep in mind what impact we have on the society. And I think, sure there are developments, but I think the bigger problem is to start what the development in the society will be like at all. So we don't have any, we are completely at the beginning. So I think the first few findings we will have will be basic findings, which will be relevant, I think, for the time that will come. So if we talk, for example, about the privacy issues or identity or the right on informational self-determination, it will not change so far what people think about their right they have on their own data. So we are looking at how this transforms in the society, how people thought 10 years ago about their data and how they are working with their data now. And now as we're preparing the citizens conferences, we have identified 3 different cities. We are working with Aachen, Stralsund and Augsburg, so we have 3 completely different cities, and we already see, for example, in Stralsund, most of the people don't know. If you ask them, are you afraid of big data, they look at you and say, okay, what's big data? Maybe I'm afraid of, but actually I don't know what you're talking about. So if we are in Aachen and you talk about big data, the public can tell you, okay, I'm afraid of my data, they are not protected, there's not enough security, I'm not the owner, so if I share my data, why don't I get any money for it, or how this works. If you're in Stralsund, they say, okay, big data, that's nice, so tell me what it is, and I think about if I'm afraid of. And I think that the problem we have in society, if you read, for example, an article that the society is afraid of big data, the first problem is, even if they say they are afraid of big data, they don't know what big data is about. So the question is, can you be afraid of something you don't know? And why are you afraid of big data? So what makes you afraid? Maybe it's the problem how we deal with big data. So you are all experts, you're working with big data all the time, you know the advantages, you know the disadvantages, the risk, but the people outside, they don't know at all what is happening. If you tell them, yeah, there's maybe an algorithm who tells the supermarket, if you are a client that is looking for some bargains, or if you are looking for luxury goods, they completely don't understand how this works, and this is what makes them afraid. So I think we have to be, with this topic, we have to go to the public, we have to let them know what our working with data is about, because as long as they don't understand what the practice side is working with and how we progress with their data, they will always be afraid.
I'm sorry, at this point I have to interrupt because we have to move on. So if you guys have any questions, you can use the coffee break.
We had one more question. I think Mr. Bismarck was waiting for a long time to ask his question. So I think we should give him the opportunity to do so.
Okay, Mr. Bismarck, go ahead.
More or less a remark, I would say. Okay, you made it more concrete at the end, but okay, big data is technology view, and if you ask the people, they don't understand what is the value of the data. So if you ask them, are you afraid of giving the supermarket the data where to store the grocery and the bargain things, then they think very fast, okay, what is it? What is the value for the supermarket? And they don't see what is the value for
What is their
myself.
value?
What does it help me? So you have this in the scale, you have this in every dimension. Again, if you talk about government, the government has the most data, and they don't give you nothing.
The problem is they don't share their data. That's
my experience is that they are very afraid of sharing data because they fear of some mysterious fears which keep them from doing something which helps society.
What is a good point, what you just mentioned, the government is not sharing their data, but our expert from our workshop in Siemens told us last time they had a workshop with the government, and they told them, so you and your industry just share your data, and they said, no, why should we share our data, because this is what our competitive advantage is about, and you don't want to share your data about health or other data, you don't give us the simplest data you have, but we should share our complete value, because this is all what we are about, so we can't share this with everyone. And I think the problem is which data we share and which data we don't share, but as long as the government doesn't share data which are really important for everyone, companies will not share any data at all because they say, why should we do this if you are not doing that?
And who moves first?
Yeah.